Hello and good evening all, and a very warm welcome to you who are joining the High Street Heroes session during the HCC conference. My name is Kath Smith, and as a member of the HCC board, I am delighted to be your chair for the next 30 minutes. This time, we will be discussing one of the most extraordinary trading periods that our independent sector has ever experienced as a result of COVID-19. We will be discussing the challenges it has posed and continues to pose. We will discuss changing consumer buying patterns and the way that the sector has innovated and adapted to boldly serve its community during this great time of uncertainty. The session will also be used to look ahead to the future and discuss how changing shopping patterns can be retained where possible and bring new opportunities for retailing both PGI Welsh lamb and beef and pork from Wales within this sector as consumers seek ways and new and alternative ways to shop for local, quality, sustainable meats with provenance. Now, I'm thrilled to be joined by a panel of experts this evening, and I would like to take a moment to introduce. Firstly, we're joined by Clive Swann, who along with his family run a traditional 200-acre hill farm in Flintshire. In 2003, they opened Swann's Farm Shop, a business which focuses on providing customers with traceable, local, quality fine foods, including their home-produced meats. The business has embraced online marketing and gone from strength to strength, and in 2018, the equivalent of a
well, I'll step in quickly if just in case we could be waiting for Kath for a long time. So I'll continue with Clive's introduction to start off with. So Clive's got a farm shop in Treyddyn in Flintshire in North Wales, one that I pass very often on my route to Manchester, usually, Clive. And also we've got David Davis. Now David Davis is the butcher at Dewi James Butchers in Cardigan, and they've been established since 1945 and serving a wide area, including North Pembrokeshire and Cigyddion, with some fantastic produce. So welcome both. So just to continue, I'm not going to keep you too long this evening. I've got a quick presentation to start where I'm going to be discussing some of the figures behind the growth that we've seen in the high street butcher sector this year. We've all been aware, I think, of how the high street butchers have really stepped up to the mark this year. You know, COVID was really something that was unexpected to us all, but butchers such as David and Clive and many others across Wales were true high street heroes, not just delivering red meat, but also delivering things like prescriptions to people and other goods as well to people in the community. And they really showed their true worth to us. So let me just start with a quick presentation where I'm going to talk a little bit about the figures that are behind this phenomenon. So if I can just share this with you, bear with me a second. Hopefully I can do this fairly easily. Okay, I'm trusting that you can all see that. So let's talk a little bit about the performance during COVID-19. So retail in general has done some significant growth during the COVID-19 lockdown. So we've seen growth up nearly, or growth in spend up nearly 8% on year levels, with volume up considerably as well. But the independent butcher has seen growth over and above this. So if we look at that, these figures, so we've seen the total retail, the growth on spend is up 9.3% against earlier levels during the lockdown, a total spend of £301 million. But the independent butchers have really thrashed that and seen a growth of 36.7% during the lockdown period, a massive 38.3 million in growth. And the truth before I go on to beef, why was this growth there? Well, first of all, there was a growth in the number of shoppers who bought lamb during the period, and the increase in the amount of lamb that people bought during the period as well. And we can see there the cuts which drove this growth as well. Chops and steaks over 53%, leg roasting joints, so big cuts over 34 or nearly 35%, and then some of the other cuts such as lamb shoulder roasting joints doing 26%, and lamb mince not doing such great growth, which is good news overall. And beef, yeah, we've seen beef do good growth as well during the period. Spend up over 16%, volume up over 16%, volume per buyer up, and more importantly, the number of buyers up also. And let's look at this then in the independent butcher sector. So nearly double the growth there in the independent butcher sector of spend on beef during the COVID period, up to £94 million. So a considerable growth there. And what was driving this growth? Again, an increase in the number of shoppers and a big increase in the volume of beef bought during each trip. And what drove this? Well, mince was a big player here. And we did see right at the start of the lockdown, there was a lot of recessionary type of purchasing behavior going on with people stocking up on mince. But we did see then steak and roasting joints doing good growth as well during the period, with people having more time to cook at home. And of course, stewing cuts as well, doing strong growth, again showing that people had more time to prepare their food during the period. So that's it from me. I'm not going to continue for any longer. What I'd like to have a look at now, I'm just going to go back to bear with me. So just what I wanted to touch on quickly, and really bringing in our experts here, David and Clive. And if I start with you, David, what did you see in terms of the patterns of customer behaviour and purchasing behaviour during the lockdown?
For us, we obviously been half and half and retail. You know, initially we saw the big drop, the big scare for us really as a company. But as soon as we saw kind of the panic, the worry kind of set in with a lot of customers, that's when we kind of saw a lot of the people who depended on supermarkets kind of turning to us, you know, as a local butcher, and then from that leading on to the other things that we supplied later down the line when we had to diversify to make sure we were keeping our customers happy and supplying them with everything they needed. But generally, people turning to us, you know, because they wanted, you know, good quality stuff, a lot of it, and obviously a steady supply, something that the supermarkets clearly couldn't cope with.
And was that new customers then, as well as your regulars buying more?
Yes, yeah, definitely. We saw a massive increase in new customers, a lot through over the phone sales, but mainly we were very fortunate to having a website at the time, and we saw you know, a massive increase in sales through the website, which was beneficial for us as a company because it made life a lot easier in terms of you know, sorting out who's having what. As you can imagine, being a reasonably small business in comparison to a lot, I guess, when you know, you haven't got so much staff to kind of cope with the kind of influx of new customers as we did have. So we were fortunate that we had things in place, let's say, to kind of help us along.
Evolved pretty quickly, I guess, to enable the online business to take more of the share of the work.
Definitely, yeah. There was a lot of late nights spent, let's say, kind of topping up on new products to add on to it, cataloguing a lot more of the product from the shop, as well as, you know, we had to kind of beef up a lot of our systems and processes within the shop as well, and how we kind of dealt with that. Normally, we'd only have a few orders a week from the internet, and this turned to, you know, 30, 40, 50, you know, some days even 70, 80 on really, really busy days, and alongside the usual people calling in and phoning in as well.
Kept having a new Range Rover on order, David. What else has it impact has it had on the business?
I wouldn't go that far, but it has led us to kind of move on and look at what we're doing and how we're doing things a little bit differently. I think the volatility of what's just happened is something that I'd like to say that we can rely on and look to the future and say this will be great if this kind of kept going. But because of the volatility and how quick we've obviously seen it grow, with the last lockdown, we saw, not quite as much panic, not quite as many customers coming into the door as we may have hoped or may have expected to see compared to the first one. But it does give us a lot of hope that people are looking to us, your local butcher, who can supply them with local produce, and a local supply chain. So it does, give us a lot of hope that there is a bright future for us as independent butchers.
And Clive, your findings, were you finding a similar pattern?
Yes, very similar actually. The week 1 and 2 of lockdown, we got busier, but then week 3 and 4, when the penny started to drop, and they did not like supermarkets and being anywhere close to a supermarket with social distance in sanitising and all the rest of it, we were hit very hard on week 3 and 4 with a lot of customers squiddling to freezers, and they were buying way in excess of what they could use themselves. And a local freezer retailer sold 72 freezers on one Sunday afternoon. It was just getting a bit silly out there, but fortunately our shop is away from all other shops. We went to great lengths for social distancing, sanitising of everything, spacing everybody out, and we'd have somebody on the door when we were busy and just asking people to stay outside or sit in the cars and give everybody a chance to have some space around us. And I think that they respected us for that, and they've kept coming back right up till now.
Been new customers again, Clive, for you, or is it the regular customers shopping more, or a mixture of both?
It's a mixture of both. We've got new customers, some have stayed, some have disappeared back to their darling supermarkets, but our old customer base, our originals, everyone is still intact and they're still coming to us and they're very grateful. And we're also doing deliveries locally to pensioners, which is going down very well. And we've even got to the stage now, if we haven't heard from them, we will just go knock on the door and just ask if they're okay. And you usually find they'll say, well, we don't need a lot, so we didn't like to ask. But if I could just have 3 pasties and a sandwich cake, we would be most grateful. But we don't want to trouble you because we know you're busy.
3 pasties is usually enough for me as well for lunch, Clive.
Yes. So it is an ongoing machine. No, you've got to keep it going. Because we're stocking a lot more than what we used to stock, so it's more of a one-stop shop. And we've got a lot of especially elderly people. They'll come to us, they'll go to the fruit and veg man on the edge of Mould, and if either of us can't supply it, they'll do without. They don't want to go through a supermarket door just yet.
And anecdotally, I've heard that this latest fortnight or 17-day fire break lockdown which we had, the patterns weren't the same as the first lockdown. Did you find that, Clive?
Our patterns have just grown and they've just kept growing. And as I said, the 17-day lockdown hasn't affected us at all. But we did get a spike just before lockdown of English customers because we're on the border. So we had an all-time record of 500 pies in 1 week, and that was people stocking up from over the border just in case there was border restrictions when we went into lockdown. But when we got into the second week of lockdown and they realised that there wasn't going to be a policeman on every road, well, then they were trickling back in.
can't encourage that kind of behaviour, Clive, but it's good to hear that your customers find it important. And for you, David, this fire break, have you seen a similar pattern?
I'd say we were, well, because of the impact, let's say, of the summer boom for us, because we were also catering butchers as well, and the help out, the eat out to help out, you know, had such a significant help for us for the turnover of the shop, that when it came to this latest fire break, you know, we saw a massive, let's say, a decline, let's say, which wasn't kind of batted back up again with, you know, the panic buyers. So for us, we saw it a lot quieter compared to the first one. But, you know, now that it's over, we are, you know, the first couple of days, we've seen a massive difference. More people kind of, as you said, Clive, trickling back into the shop again, back to kind of a normality, I guess. And we're already seeing, you know, the catering customers kind of coming back and reopening their doors as well. So again, you know, it's a short break of, you know, worrying, but it's not nothing to worry about now by the looks of it. It looks like we're going back to some form of normality.
Great. And, you know, the run up to Christmas as well, I guess, you know, are there any learnings from the COVID period and the two lockdowns that we've had so far that you think will be valuable for you moving forward? So I'll start with you, Dan.
Definitely. I think with all the regulations, as Clive said, you know, the way that he's kind of sorted things out in his own shop, we've done something similar, you know, and that type of, you know, how to say, guidelines and things that we need to consider while we're serving our customers. Obviously, with a Christmas rush as well, you know, that's going to make a heck of a difference for us as well in terms of how many people we can serve and get the products out there to them. So I foresee a lot more home deliveries, you know, and I've already seen it in a lot of the orders, that Christmas orders already trickling in. They're all asking for home deliveries just because they know it's going to be a lot less hassle for them. And obviously, you know, with the worry that potentially there will be further restrictions in place at that time. And obviously, as I think a lot of people, and I think a lot of turkey farmers have been on the news recently saying that their big birds are going to go to waste. So we're already foreseeing a lot of smaller birds, let's say, for this Christmas.
The whole reasoning behind the session that we've got this evening is to talk about the Welsh Lamb and Welsh Beef Butchers Club. Now, you're both members, and you were very kindly participants in a workshop session that we had earlier this year. And I see that Tony Goodger, who is on the chat as well, was another participant representing the small abattoir sector. And I just wanted to ask you, so if we start with Clive on this one, you know, as a member for many years now, Clive, of the Welsh Lamb and Welsh Beef Butchers Club, what benefits do you see, or what would you say to a butcher that isn't a member about the benefits of being part of the club?
You should be part of the club if you're selling Welsh lamb in Wales, Welsh beef in Wales. It's all part of the wraparound. The levies are being collected at the slaughterhouses to do this work by Welsh lamb and beef, and you should be on board because the promotional material that comes through, and more importantly now, there's that much Facebook and social media activities which HCC are spending big money on feeding in. You should be there to benefit from it. And I know in our shop we flag it up very well, and a lot of the recipe books that they send out, we push them into shopping baskets to make sure they go home. We don't just put them out on display for people to pick up if they want. We get the girls at the till to actually put them in the bag and they take them home. So it all works. And we're all sat here now saying what a wonderful run we've had. But these, the likes of the Butcher Club, will be very valuable when it slumps and when we go back to quiet times, when you need that little bit to keep it going.
Question to you, Dav. You've been a member for a number of years. What are the benefits for you?
I've got to agree with Clive, really. I think the marketing that you guys do for us is fantastic. The biggest thing for me on a personal level is the support that we get whenever we've got any queries or questions. particularly in regards to the PGI status of beef and lamb and stuff like that. And on top of that, the ongoing projects that we have, whenever we've got a project on the go, I'm first to give Kirsty a call and say, what do you think of this? And I get a lot of feedback, and it's great like that. And obviously you guys provide a hub of information, not just, what we do, but, what other butchers do. And we kind of communicate with each other almost through you guys to a degree. I think it's something that's very beneficial for us as a company. I don't think how we do it without you, to be honest.
But so with no further ado, I'm going to ask Kirsty to do a quick presentation for us on some plans that we've got for the Butchers Club, because it's important for us that we see this growth that we've seen in the sector sustained, and the more that we can do to support this key sector moving forward, and get more people to join to make it stronger, then the better. So Kirsty, if you present to us, please.
Get this working. Go. Can we see that? There we go. So as part of my role at HCC, I do about 2020 in England. All are independent butchers, box schemes, online retailers and approved stockists of PGI Welsh lamb and PGI Welsh beef. Membership is completely free to join, and members receive including consumer-focused point-of-sale materials to help support their sales and engagement with consumers. And as has already been discussed, the COVID-19 restrictions during lockdown resulted in a rising number of people shopping at their local butcher shops. Many of these shops provided a valuable service, as can be seen from David and Clive, to their local communities, and responded to the local lockdown by doing home deliveries and helping some of the more vulnerable members of the community. While the current situation is still quite fluid and there's tightening of movements in the short term, it's likely that restrictions will be eased during 2021, and it's therefore really important for HCC to put a strategy in place to highlight the benefits of continuing to shop at your local butcher over returning to the pre-lockdown shopping habits. So our strategy is going to take on a three-tiered approach for the activities over the period, including targeting butchers not currently a member of the Butchers Club and communicating the benefits of joining. Secondly, we'll be supporting current members of the Butchers Club with help, advice and a host of marketing materials they can use. Finally, we'll be using our recently launched Butchers Club channels to further develop the Butchers Club web pages and raise awareness through video content, competitions and signposting consumers to where they can find their local members. So how are we going to do this? Engagement has been positive since the launch of our Butchers Club social channels in August, and with the first competition running, we had a great initial following. So taking on board feedback that we received from a recent focus group with our butchers, some of the core activities that we aim to implement over the coming year include a series of themed recipe booklets set around a variety of themes, including healthy eating, different cuisines, cuts and diets. Increasingly, as we also build up on our bank of recipes, them in with a strong call to action to visit our website, and include booklets only including recipes that have videos so that consumers can follow their online. We'll also be developing our Butcher Club booklets, providing comprehensive information on the different types of cuts, cooking methods and qualities of the different carcasses. Throughout the year, there will be ongoing social media posting with new creative content developed on a regular basis and a variety of competitions to boost engagement and grow social following. We will also use highly targeted and local social advertising to signpost consumers to where they can find their local member. Equally, a more trade-focused campaign will be implemented that targets the catering sector and support those butchers through that as well. Furthermore, we will continue to build on the Butchers Club section of the website with an Ask the Expert area, which will feature a series of how-to guides, such as the best way to cook lamb steaks and suggestions of the best cuts to ask for at the butchers. Further developments will also be implemented on our trade-facing website. This will include the ability to submit declarations online, order hard copies of point-of-sale materials, download a selection of marketing materials, and access to a brand new branded asset library of images and toolkits for butchers to use on their own social channels. Quarterly toolkits will also be developed for members, which will be tied in with the themes for the upcoming activities. This will include creatives butchers can use on their websites and social channels. We will also be offering a series of virtual training courses for members to help upskill their marketing efforts with a series of short and snappy videos. And when the time allows, we will be again restarting our craft butchery courses. We will also develop a series of AV case studies featuring butchers alongside a Wales-wide TV advertising campaign. And finally, we will continue to conduct quarterly focus groups and surveys seeking feedback and asking what our members need to make sure that we're producing the content and themes that help them the most and give them exactly what they need. As a priority, a comprehensive list of butchers in Wales not currently not currently a member with us would be drawn up, and we will be targeting them with a mail out of our marketing toolkit. Will be a small selection of point of sale. Members at HCC will then follow up with a call to answer any questions before joining. The members campaign will be tied into the mail out of materials members currently receive, with a series of themed mini campaigns around these dates that complement the consumer campaigns that we've got going on as well. And these will be backed up by complimentary video and blog content. Our first burst is coming up this month and will focus on urging people to buy their Christmas meat from their local butcher. A second burst in the spring will focus on environmental messaging with a new recipe booklet for sourcing locally for your recipes. And our third burst will focus on summer specials with a whole host of new barbecue recipes accompanied with the publication of our Meat on the Bone. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Kirsty. So we've got a suite of
I think we
measures.
might have lost Reese there as well.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Just give him a minute to see if he comes back.
I can hear you. Hello. Okay, you can't hear me. I'm told. So what I want to move on to a couple of questions now. We've got a couple of questions here on the chat that have come through. But before I go on to the questions, a lot of the messages, guys, I'd like to say, are praise for the independent butcher sector. Yeah, there's a lot of people saying that you've done a great job, a sterling job over the lockdown period. But the question, and this is a very good question here from John Davis. Whilst many of the high street butchers supply food service catering businesses which don't always buy local, what more does HCC need to do to win the food service sector over to buy more Welsh rather than focusing on the cheapest form from distant land? Well, I'll answer part of that, I think. And you know, it's all fine and good. What is HCC going to do to win over the food service sector? But I think the food service sector are really only going to react to consumers. And I think that we in Wales need to be stronger as consumers in asking when we go out to restaurants, when we go to hotels and pubs, we need to be asking where that meat comes from. Is this meat, is this Welsh lamb, is this Welsh beef? And I think by asking those questions, we're going to make those restaurateurs and the owners, the chefs, aware that we are looking for that kind of quality. You know, in many of the countries overseas, you wouldn't see any other foreign meat on the menu. So it is down to the consumer. But the questions, I guess, aren't just for me. So David, what do you think that we should be doing?
I think we kind of touched on this on our workshop when we had a conversation before, and that was kind of convincing the restaurant, you know, essentially our customer, to kind of see the importance of what, you know, Welsh beef and Welsh lamb has to offer them, you know, in terms of what value it puts onto their menu. And I think working on that, you know, between us as the butchers and suppliers and yourselves, and being able to show them the benefit and what it brings to their customers as well, I think that's one way to potentially help out that situation.
Clive, what do you think would be a driver to get more food service companies to buy Welsh?
Find who's buying it, who's with these food service, who's doing the ordering, load them all onto a bus and take them round local farms, introduce them to what's on their doorstep, give them a day out. That's what they want. I've heard it done in the pig industry very successfully in the past, but actually bring them out and show them round the farm, show them into butcher shops, and just open their eyes, because there's quite a lot out there that have seen bad programmes on the BBC, and it tars us all with the same brush. You need to hold their hand and introduce them to who we are.
No, absolutely, Clive, and this is actually part of the work that we do. We do every year, or until this year, to be honest, we do bring a busload of chefs from London up to North Wales and take them on a farm visit. We also bring in chefs from overseas as well and bring them on farm visits to Wales. And yeah, you're right, that is one very good way of doing it. But I think what's disappointing from my point of view is, you know, when you go into Welsh pubs and hotels and you don't see Welsh red meat on the menu, I find that very disappointing.
Same here.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it is about the consumer needs to take a lead here as well. And you know, I think I would pass this back to the farmers. You know, when you do go and eat out, when you do go into restaurants, do you ask where that meat comes from?
Well, I think David and I have done a lot of the legwork on the consumers over the summer. We've just got to now get it flagged up in restaurants and in the food service sector, as it's the same as what him and I are selling.
I agree with that. There's a lot to do with labelling as well, and how the consumer labels it on their menu as well. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, if people are willing to, you know, to pay a little bit extra for that quality as well, I think that would go very far as well. I'm just looking if there are any further questions here, but I can't see any coming through. I think there's notes. Great point, Clive. The real story shown to customers is always better than that told by the BBC. And we don't even have to pay you a license fee, Clive. So that's great.
Cup of tea at the winter fair, don't you, me?
So I'm just gonna touch quickly on a couple of points with the Butchers Club, because when we did have the workshop, one of the things that everybody who was on that workshop seemed to agree is about the use of social media these days. And we've found we've taken a digital first approach to our campaigns at HCC for a couple of years now, and we found that it's paid dividends. And we have found as well during the lockdown period that there was a big increase in the use of social media, and therefore our campaigns worked even better. But what have you found, David, is the key type of content that will drive sales for you?
I believe that, you know, I've noticed that we've been on social media for a very long time. You know, I've seen a lot of people turning to it's good photography. I think is a big hit. I think in terms of content, it's got to look good. People buy with their eyes. I think that's one of the biggest key points to bring into any sort of advertisement, especially when you're trying to sell something that you're going to eat. Is you're always looking with your eyes, and that's how we kind of try and get a good approach for us anyway. With regards to all our social media, and as I can see from the stuff that you put out, obviously, you know, it's great stuff. So that's something I would point out.
And just to add as well, you know, creating the kind of content that we want to put out on social media has been a challenge for us during lockdown. Not being able to travel, not being allowed into enclosed spaces to film and so on has been a challenge. And we've actually depended on chefs and butchers to shoot their own content and share that one with us. What do you find, Clive, that sells the product for you?
Well, the wife's very good on this. I'm a bit of a fossil on this, but every day that the shop's open, Gail will have a very good post on every morning, and she features something different in the shop every day. And the local producers that we are selling for, she will do a feature of every one of them on a different day, and then add on to it something into our butcher counter at the same time. And it works very well. You're surprised at how many customers we come in an afternoon after what they've seen on Facebook in the morning.
Excellent. Well, look, I'm going to draw this session to an end, guys. I think we've had a great session. We've had a few technical difficulties, and we lost Kath. I hope she's okay. But I'd like to, thank you both. So I'll thank you, David, first. And just to give you a little bit more credit, my father was on the phone earlier saying that my sister had been in your shop and bought him some faggots. And he was particularly happy with the faggots that he'd had from your butchers. So he asked me to tell you. And Clive, your 500 pies in a week, I see that as a challenge. So I'll give it a go. And thank you very much both for joining us. And thank you, Kirsty, for your presentation. And if you've got any further questions, anybody who's tuned in this evening, do please feel free to drop us an email or pick up the phone, and we can hopefully answer those questions with you directly. So thank you all very much for joining, and thanks for all the contributors. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr, a nos da.
Good night.
Diolch yn fawr, nos da. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.